Hey, what's going on, you guys? So in this video, I'll explain, or do my best to explain, what blockchain is in as simple terms as possible. Most definitions or most explanations of blockchain are extremely technical, too far over the average person's head to really truly comprehend what's going on. So I'm going to do my best to break it down so that you truly understand the value of this revolutionary technology. Alright, so before we get into it, I'll introduce myself. I'm Fitz, and I run a blockchain and digital token consultant and brokerage firm. The purpose of these videos is simply to increase awareness and understanding of the blockchain and these different digital tokens. This is the single largest hurdle that we must jump over or overcome before the space truly matures and we start to see these life-changing innovations happen. So if you enjoy this content, don't forget to click subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and ring the bell so that you are alerted whenever this content comes out. And I'll do my best to make sure that it's super quality driven and short, sweet, to the point. Now let's move on into the actual topic at hand. Ultimately, when we break blockchain all the way down to its essence, blockchain goes back to community. Blockchain is a method of trust amongst a community, and the community achieves this trust through transparency, or the blockchain achieves this trust through transparency. Every member of a blockchain network or community can see every transaction that happens in this particular network. That essentially keeps everyone in line, so that if someone tries to go and edit any data, they can't do that because there's so many eyes watching this particular record book or this network that it makes it very difficult to have bad intentions or to change any information on it. The larger the network becomes, the more eyes that rest on this particular network, the more powerful this network becomes, the more reliable it becomes. So a blockchain network with only 2 or 3 different members isn't very trustworthy because it doesn't have the checks and balances built into it that really needs to facilitate a huge amount of trust. But if you have a network with thousands or even hundreds of thousands of eyes on this network, or people watching this network, it becomes a very, very powerful tool to keep things in line. For example, let's say we have property records. Property records are typically found down at your local county's office. In order to check title on a property, you have to hire a title company to go and physically search the record books at the county to make sure that the person who is looking to sell this property has the legal right to sell this property. So let's bring blockchain into that. If that record was put onto a blockchain and it was validated before it went on the blockchain, from that point on, anyone who accessed that record via the blockchain would know without a doubt that the last person who inputted that information, or the last owner of that particular piece of information, is in fact the owner of that particular property. So we can see just by that simple example that it would alleviate a ton of work and a ton of time just in the real estate industry alone. And that's just one use case, possible use case of this revolutionary technology called the blockchain. So when I'm thinking about things, I like to really break it down to its core in the essence of it. So when I think about blockchain, there's 3 things that really stick out to me to help me understand what it is and what is designed to serve as. And those 3 things are transparency, community, and decentralization. The transparency comes in play when it comes to trust. You no longer have to trust anyone that operates on a blockchain because there's so much transparency. It's like being in a room full of 1,000 people and tying your shoelaces, and then someone who wasn't in the room comes in and asks, hey, did this person tie his shoe? And every single person watched you tie your shoe, so everyone is agreeing that yes, this person came in here and tied his shoes. That can be used in several different ways when it comes to the way our world works and the corruption that goes on. So blockchain is actually going to play a large part in fraud prevention. Now, the second thing, which is community. No successful blockchain can function without a large active community. Now, when we look at the Bitcoin blockchain, we're like, okay, what is the community? You know, are people participating? Yes, people are participating, even though the blockchain is being secured by computers. Those computers have humans behind them programming and making decisions for these particular networks. So this community is important because, as I stated earlier, the more eyes on a particular network, the more powerful it becomes, because the more you can rely on it. So when we see different enterprise applications of blockchain and they have a closed off system, you really have to think about, okay, what is the longevity or the security of this particular network. And what I think will happen is we'll see that these private blockchains, because there will be private and public blockchains, private blockchains will likely have a more closed off network or community. But I have a suspicion that these private blockchains will actually tie into super large public blockchains like Bitcoin to further validate their transactions and to create that trust that they truly need to make that information trustworthy. So the last thing that really helps me understand blockchain is the decentralization or the decentralized aspect of it. Now, I just mentioned that we do have a few groups or people developing private blockchains, but to me, the essence of blockchain relies on decentralization. And decentralization means to simply move or remove the center of authority from a situation, whether it's an organization or there's a group, whatever the situation is, or whatever the case is, you remove that center of authority who is moving every part of this particular environment. And what happens when you remove that, you have to take everyone's opinion into account, which again keeps the integrity of that network. Because if you have to move, if the network has to move based on the consensus of everyone in the network, and consensus means that everyone pretty much has to agree that, hey, it's time to make this particular decision, or it's time to move this particular direction. It creates a much better environment to be in, so that no one is pretty much taken advantage of. Because we'll see censorship in things like Facebook or YouTube or Twitter at this point, because there's a center of authority within those organizations that control how things are done. In a decentralized network that is ran by a blockchain, everyone pretty much has a say-so. And a really cool example that I like to share with people when it comes to understanding decentralization and the power of decentralization is the starfish and the spider. The spider represents a centralized organization or centralized system, and the starfish represents a decentralized system. Now, pay very close attention, because this is going to help you understand the power of the decentralization aspect of blockchain. Now, when you have a spider, that spider's activities is completely controlled by the head of that spider. If you remove the head from a spider, the spider will cease to function. Or if you remove a couple of the legs, the spider will not grow any legs back. That spider will be severely debilitated. Versus when we look at a starfish, if you remove a leg from a starfish, that starfish will simply grow a new leg. You cut that starfish in half, you now have two starfish on your hands. Another really cool thing about starfish is that a starfish has no central brain. every movement of that starfish relies on the entire organism. So every leg has to decide that, yes, it's a good idea to move. One leg cannot make that decision for the entire organism, unlike the spider, where the head makes the decision for every single leg, the body, and so forth. So we can see that applied to human networks when we have things like Bitcoin. Bitcoin decided to, a portion of Bitcoin decided to split. This is why we have Bitcoin Cash. A group of people didn't really like the direction that Bitcoin was going in, so they said, hey, you know what, we're going to take our community and we're going to form our own situation. So what happened? Bitcoin was not destroyed. Now we have two versions of Bitcoin, each with its own set of pros and cons. But both of those networks are actually functioning properly right now and actually growing and still thriving, actually. So I hope this helped you understand the value of blockchain and what blockchain is and the importance of it, and it's much, much deeper than that. But I'll be releasing more videos on exactly what blockchain is and some real life use cases to help get your brain working on how this technology will revolutionize our world. So also, I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts on blockchain and where you think it's going, why you think it will be successful, why you think it might not be successful, and just leave a comment and I'll be sure to, make sure I engage with you guys and give you my 2 cents on it as well. But don't forget to click the subscribe button, give it a thumbs up, and ring the bell so that you're alerted whenever more valuable content like this is released. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.